All right, seeing none, then we have no appointments to consider tonight, so we're going to proceed to the consent agenda, which is items 2 through 10. Are there items on consent for separate question or comments? Councilmember Roscoe?
Yes, item number 7, please.
All right, item 7. Any others? All right, so item number 7 is consideration of the 2020 first quarter report on 21st century policing. We've also received a public comment on this item as well. So Madam Clerk, would you please display the name of the commenter on this item?
Yes, one moment.
All right. So for anyone this is their first virtual meeting of the council, we display the name of the commenters, both so that the commenter is fully aware that the council has received the complete text of the comments and has them in front of them right now, but also for other members of the public who may be interested to know that in this case, Ms. Bezon has submitted a comment and can see the full text of that comment at the city's website as well. All right, so with that, then we'll proceed to the questions and comments. Councilmember Roscoe.
Thank you. And I directing my questions to our acting chief, Strange?
I am here.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I always look forward to receiving these reports and seeing where we are. And I was really interested in finding out how recent events impacted some of the trends in our crime. As the reports, I should say. But I wanted to ask a few questions because I did notice there were a couple of that drew my attention. On page 4 of the report, there is a breakout and it talks about quarterly violent crime beat comparison. And I noticed there was a breakout. It did reference rape, robbery, and aggravated assaults. And we had a breakout for robberies and aggravated assaults. We did not have a breakout for rape. And I did notice that it happened to be a tremendous, because it was, there are very few incidents reported previously, but now we have report that have, increased that. And you might not have the answer today, and that's fine. I drew my attention because I'm thinking if we see that there have been 6 rape reports with the percentage so tremendously, is there a way we can either break to see what those reports were about? Were 6 reports with, 4 of them are the same person reporting, or is a stranger, is someone who's familiar? Because those take, obviously different components. And so in seeing that, I guess I just needed more information. And again, you don't have to answer that today, but in the future when we're doing this, maybe we need to break it out more. The other thing is that I saw that in aggravated assaults that 47% were domestic violence related. And I like knowing that because, obviously that affects how I'm looking at the 19 aggravated assault reports already. However, how do we report incidences such as child abuse, if any, if there were any reports? Where would those fall?
Yeah, so I think I caught most of it. Either my signal or yours was breaking up a little bit, but go into the data in general. It is fairly macro level data, and I think I hear you on the discussion on the reporting of rape. That's such a general description and may really cause people to be alarmed when we know, though I don't have your exact breakdown for tonight's meeting, we do know that a large number, and we're consistent in West Sacramento, of the rape reports are non-stranger. They're not stranger rapes. They're not somebody hiding in the bushes waiting to jump out. Just to, going forward, to dig into that number a little bit more, I think we will do that when we see any kind of significant discrepancies pop up. 600% sounds like a lot, but when it's 6 incidents, it's a little bit different. And then likewise with the breakdowns with child abuse reporting, mostly that is done on a specific form. And of course, we get those reports from multiple mandated reporting sources and intake those. And so it is possible that a child abuse report could hypothetically be part of an aggravated assault case. So I don't know that it will ever be a perfect breakdown. But if you or the rest of council wants to see a deeper dive into crime, that's something we could probably get into. And so I'm definitely open to doing that. We have a very talented analyst that is frequently helping me deep dive into this. And so any requests along those lines, we're happy to help going forward.
Okay, thank you. I did, I brought this up before, and I had a discussion with our manager about, it's always the robberies line. And you've heard me talk about this before, but I see here, I'm like, okay, 18 robberies. And I'm going to the breakdown. And then, of course, the breakout on the bottom, thankfully, says 5 of the robberies, which is % of that number, were related to shoplifting incidences, which loss prevention officer was assaulted by the suspect. And, it appears that those were, I imagine, in Walmart, if taken. I thought I read that somewhere. But in any case, I as a DA, these are robberies. The rest is robberies, and that's under the law, what their cat does. However, if in fact that is happening in Walmart, and Walmart is in beat 1, is that correct?
Yeah, Walmart's in beat 1, Home Depot. A lot of big retailers are in beat 1, and then of course we have Target down in beat 3. So both of those retail centers could be drivers of Estes robberies that you're describing.
What I'd hate to see is the skewing of because when people look at the word robbery, they're thinking, stick 'em up. You're in the dead of night and someone pulls you, to the side and says, give me your wallet. Oftentimes it just has a different ring to it than the traditional shoplifting that goes worse than just shoplifting. And so at some point, and it doesn't have to, I think we should have a further discussion as to whether or not we want to include those Estes robberies in with the regular violent crime robberies similar to those. I just would hate to have the crime statistic, the reporting, be skewed by those incidences, and then have people have, the wrong idea of really in beat 1, for example, just because of incidences that might be happening at Walmart. So, just something to think about that we don't have to acknowledge tonight, or we don't have to deal with tonight, but at some point I'd like to consider maybe a change in the report to reflect that.
Yeah, and we can do that at some degree. I think we are challenged by the fact that right now in the UCR, the Uniform Crime Reporting guidance, it defines even an Estes type of robbery as a count against the robbery category by definition. So it may just take us, again, being a little bit more detailed and breaking that out and making sure that people understand the differences between the types of robberies that do exist.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Councilmember Orozco. And on many of these other topics, it's really, we're very fortunate in our city to have a diverse in many ways, but definitely diverse in expertise and professional background representation on this council. And so to have a member of the public safety community on the council as a deputy district attorney and other relationships to law enforcement as well, it just makes a big difference in terms of our ability to see past the obvious and to understand some of the underlying issues. And so really appreciate those comments, and just to underscore them, because we can, to the extent we're the ones collecting the data, so we can with that. The suggestion here isn't that we recategorize the crimes. It's just that we have 2 subcategories under the UCR category that we're reporting, so that the public and we can see. And I think that's an excellent suggestion, so that both public and we can understand what are the resources that are needed, what are we doing well, what are we not doing well. So I think that's really important. I also, just this report, I think I said this before, and I just want to emphasize, and I'm glad we started, I'm very glad that Councilmember Orozco started in this section of the report, because I do think it's important that we really, every year, every quarter that we see these reports, that we really focus very heavily on this section in terms of understanding safety in our community and trends and some of the challenges. and also some of the racial and other disparities, the neighborhood issues, to hold not the department per se, although yes, the department, but ourselves accountable for what's going on. And so much of crime and policing involves, there's so much other, social determinants and other issues that are happening, and we can't solve everything, and everything will not be perfectly equitable in every outcome. But that doesn't recuse us from having to pay attention to those numbers and to understand what are we doing, and what are we doing that's working, what are we doing that's not working, and this is our time to really dive into them. So I hope we'll think about a way to separate these two reports, because sometimes we don't start this way, and it's hard once we're talking about, gosh, Coffee with a Cop and the basketball was so much fun, and then you have to switch over to, well, okay, but what about the racial disparity in arrests that we've been dealing with? And it's just a very dissonant conversation, and so I really appreciate leading off with this one. But I did want to ask that because I think the comment that we got from Ms. Faison was, she's a brand new resident. We've been grappling with these issues for a while. I think in this particular case, our focus has been, for the first several years of these reports that are still relatively recent. I think since you came on, Chief Strange, in the department, you really led the efforts for transparency and with a real focus on equity and putting a mirror on ourselves. But the data was, messy and inconsistent, and it was not the same definitions and things over time. So our ability to really hold ourselves accountable and to think about what strategies might be effective at dealing with some of the disparities that show up in the statistics has been limited, but it's been getting better every year. And then when the Racial Identity Profiling Act passed, that created more workload on the department in terms of figuring this out and a lot of challenges, but with the hope that would also standardize some of these measures and definitions and what have you, that we would be able to do better. So that data is getting better, and these reports are getting even more and more solid. And I think it just makes it more incumbent on us to use them, and to use them in a way that says, okay, and so whether it's tonight or in our next report, really diving into, maybe pick a question or two. There was a period when we, for example, focused very heavily on what's the, what are behind some of the numbers with Latino stops and arrests, particularly in beat one that was covered by the injunction, a few years ago. So we were very interested in, let's understand that a little bit more. And we ought to, perhaps pick a topic each quarter that we really dive into, maybe hopefully an uncomfortable one that we wouldn't otherwise see. So I think that I want to, really thank you, Chief Strange, for the work that you've been doing on this for your whole time here. But it's now at a point where we can really, make good use. And I know Councilmember Ledesma was on the subcommittee to work on this early stage, but it's at a point where we can use this to start to continue to tackle some of these issues in our practices and in our hiring and our education and everything else in ways that will help to close some of those gaps.
Thank you all for the comments on that, and I'm definitely open to even getting back together again to try to refine the content to that report, so it does serve greater purpose as we move forward. And again, being able to challenge some of those big issues, I think, is what we hope to do.
All right, thank you. All right, so then with that, we have the consent agenda before us. Is there a motion?
Move to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.